Welcome back, guys. So today we're going to be talking about The Flash Season 8, Episode 19, otherwise entitled Negative Part 1, which negative it was indeed. In both the characters were negative, um, and something that happens towards the end of this episode could be perceived as quite negative, and perceiving that as negative, you would be right. So, without further ado, let's just jump right into this. So, our episode starts off with Bart and Nora. We see them again. We see them, being brother and sister. They're just playing a VR game together. They bickered a little bit about who was the good guy, who was the bad guy in the game. And then, towards the end of at the end of their game session, they take off their headsets. Iris is right there. Iris is calling them, and it's the Iris from 2049. So it's not our Iris, it's just the Iris from 2049. And she's like, "Oh, like I'm so proud of you, Nora. I'm so proud of you, Bart." And then she disappears in that time sickness thing, and our Iris from 2022 reappears right there, which was like, okay. And they're both like, "Mom, why do you look so young? How did you get here?" And they piece it together pretty quickly. And Nora's like, "I need to bring her back to 2022 now. I need to tell Barry. Well, she says I need to tell Dad." And she's like, "Dad will know what to do." And then we jump to Fast Track Labs, which we get to see Mina in her suit, and it looks so damn good. It looks amazing. Something I did catch in the episode, real quick at this part, is she's pushing herself. She's pushing herself on the I'm blanking on the thing. She's pushing herself on this thing, and on a treadmill. She's pushing herself on the treadmill, and she flies into the wall. And I was like, Barry, you could have caught her. But she runs out of the lab, and in a fit of rage because everyone's asking why she's pushing herself so hard. And Barry catches up with her. She's walking back and forth between these trash cans, kicking the bags, getting upset, like, "I can't do this. I can't do this. This shouldn't be me." And Barry's like, "Hey, listen, like, you got this. You need to stop pushing yourself so hard, though. You don't have anything to prove to anyone. Like, even just an ordinary person can be a hero." And right when he dropped that line, I knew what homie was about to do. He took off his cowl in front of her, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're..." And he's like, "Barry Allen, I'm a CSI." And she's like, "So the streak is a badge with a day job?" And he's like, "Yeah, so like any ordinary person can be a job or be a superhero. I'm like an ordinary person. I'm just trying to do better. I'm trying to help people." And she says, "Well, I can't be a hero. I don't even have a name." And he goes, "Yes, you do. Fast track." And then he just runs away. I'm like, "How are you going to leave that bomb and then run away?" And then we jump to Eobard and Dion. And they're having their conversation. He's like, "First off, you're going to get me out of this prison, and then you're going to give me my speed back." And Dion's like, "Oh, you'll get what's coming to you." And Thawne's like, "I will. What's it going to cost me?" And Dion says, "Your life," and snaps. And he does that green particle effect all over him, and he ages like 100 years and dies. I was like, oh, okay, I guess he's dead. And we jump to Joe and Cecile after this. And if Rosalind's there, she interrupts their conversation about Cecile going out on patrol, is what they called it, at night. And she's like, "Okay, Cecile, I want to know, where are my powers?" And we find out that Cecile took her powers on accident. At least this is what Cecile thinks, because she was thinking, "That'd be pretty cool if I had Rosalind's powers at this moment right now." And she did have her powers, and it stole them from Rosalind, I guess. And then we get to see Joan, which was awesome. I love her. It's so nice to see that character back. And she's with Bart and Nora and Iris. And she's running tests on her. And Iris starts to have these like flashes, like these, they call them like temporal visions, I think is what they called them. And she's seeing all the forces together, which was pretty interesting. And yeah, Nora decides to run back in time to meet up with Barry and explain this to him. And then we get to see all three of the forces in present time in Fast Track Labs. They appear in Fast Track Labs in front of Mina and Eobard. And then Dion's eyes turn black, which was a dead giveaway, if you didn't know before, that they're the negative versions of the forces. which I kind of assumed from the pretty beginning of the story that it was going to be the negative forces. So it's cool to finally see that actually be confirmed and to see that our guess, a lot of the community's guess was right. And then Mina puts on her cowl, which I feel like she should have had a cowl, not a cowl, but a mask, like what XS has, what Nora has, because it would have been so much cooler to have her hair out and her face out more. It's just it looks a little bit more clumped onto her face here versus if she had just like the mask, it would have looked a little bit better. But anyways, she's like, "Oh, you're not gonna take Eobard from me," because they said they're gonna kill him, and they freeze her. Barry runs up from behind Dion, goes to punch Dion. Dion freezes Barry, and Barry's like, honey, and starts to electrify his eyes, which means, he's charging up. He's going to do some big boy moves. And Fuerza's like, oh, I'm going to crush his windpipe or something like that. And Barry keeps charging and charging and charging. And once he gets fully charged, he like releases this pulse of energy out of his body of lightning. And it just shocks all three of the forces and knocks them out, and it obviously doesn't hit Mina or Eobard. And they're like, "Oh my god, like, are you okay? Like, whoa!" And he's like, "I feel so exhausted," and he like falls into them. And Eobard says, "Well, it could have been from that light show you just sent off." And he says, "No, it's not. It's from like before when Mina hit me with her lightning." So I think something is happening with the forces are like draining him, slowly draining him when he's nearby. That's like my only guess. Anyways, he runs back to Star Labs with the help of Mina, and he meets up with Nora and Chester and Allegra. But mainly Nora's back. Like he gets to see his daughter again, which is really cool. And they're filling each other in on what's been going on in their time periods. And Nora talks about what's going on with Iris. Barry's like, you need to be back with your sister, or not your sister, your mother. And we're going to take care of the forces here. So Barry is positive in taking care of these forces now, and he comes up with a plan that Mina needs to give part of her powers to Eobard, because then there's a group of three. They have a better chance of winning if they're together. While this was also happening, this is just a quick sidebar. Caitlin gets into that cryopod they talked about in the previous episode, and that was pretty much all that happened. We don't get to see anything else. So I just throw that in really quick. So while this is happening, we have our group of three fighting the three forces outside of this room to protect them. Now, Cecile uses her new powers that she got from, I don't remember her actual name, but it's the Queen from the Royal Flush Gang. She takes powers from her during the episode, and they have a throwaway line like, "Cecile, you're becoming the strongest metahuman in this city, in the world." And we get to see that on display. She stops Dion from snapping his fingers. I don't know how, maybe like mind control or something. So that's how she takes care of him. And then Chester slams like this force field thing on the ground, and then once Fuerza punches it or punches next to it, it engulfs her in this force field thing. And she's hulking out on it, she's punching it, she's jamming it, she's trying to stick her fingers through it and like rip it open. And then Allegra is fighting Psyche. She shoots like this her beam things out of her hands at Psyche. He teleports away, I'm assuming, and she follows him. She goes into like this room with these elevators, and they have like their fight. He's like, "Oh, you're got these light powers, but you're still in the dark." And she's like, "Oh, it takes more than that to scare me." And he starts teleporting all over the room, and then eventually they clash like this in what I call a Harry Potter moment, where when Voldemort and Harry went at each other. That's what this looks like to me. But it's nice to see Allegra actually doing something and being useful to the team. It's really cool to see that from her. I love her new powers, like her leveled up version of her powers, like that aura around her is really cool. So naturally, it works. They transfer the powers, so all three of them, you got Barry, you got Mina, and you got Thawne. They all rush outside. It was awesome. I forgot to mention that Barry does give Eobard his ring. Not Barry's ring, but Eobard's ring. So he has it. That's how he has his OG suit. It was in the ring. And Barry's like, all right, let's go. Let's go clap them cheeks. And Barry rushes at Psyche and Fuerza, and it was so cool. Barry does this like barrel roll thing in the air, throws a lightning bolt behind him, which hits Psyche in the back, knocks him over, and then while he's still running and charged up, he turns and just decks Fuerza right in the face and knocks her out. And then we have Dion, who's like looking around, he's like all scared and stuff, and then you have Eobard and Mina do a tag team on him. They both run at him. He snaps both of his fingers, freezes both of them like right in front of him, right about to hit him, and they still have a little bit of kinetic energy left and deck him and knock him to the ground. So they're all three next to each other. They all stand up again. And then we switch back to Iris with Joan, Bart, and Nora. And she starts like freaking out again. She's having these temporal episode things, temporal visions and stuff, and her head's hurting, and she's like, I have to give myself into this. I have to give into, I have to see what's going to happen. And she starts saying the sacrifices aren't Eobard. The sacrifice is, and she teleports away from Dion, teleporting her right in front of Barry, who is about to throw a lightning bolt. And what do you think is going to happen? Now, this was so freaking shocking, pun intended. He kills her, obviously on accident. Like, he's not going to kill his wife on purpose, but that was insane. I can't believe they showed that. I can't believe they did that to him. My poor man has had to hold her dying in his arms twice now. So if you really think she's dead, she's probably not. But then the time thing that was like dissolving her before leaves her body. And who do you think it goes into? It goes into my boy Eobard frickin' Thawne. And he starts screaming in agony and ripping at his face. And I'm like, what is this guy doing? And once he starts ripping a little bit more, I could see a slight hint of yellow. You're going to see that in just a second. Like, look at that slight bit of yellow. His skin's peeling off. I knew immediately that that was our reverse flash from this time. I guess not really this time, but the current one, the one that's evil, the one that Barry hates. And he rips off that face and bursts out. And it was insane. It was so freaking cool. It was awesome to see him like that. And oh my God, he throws the face to the ground and says something along the lines of, "Oh, I'm back, and this is going to be interesting." And I can't remember if he runs off or not. I think he runs off, but I'm not 100% sure. And you have Mina over here screaming because her freaking boyfriend just died. He got his face ripped off, and some guy burst out of him. And oh, that's how the episode ends. That it says to be continued. So in part two, that's what we're going to see. We're going to see the aftermath of this, and I cannot wait. I've seen the trailer; it looks amazing. And all I could think of during this scene was the comic book panel of Thawne ripping out of Barry. Like, look at that. That is so uncanny. It's almost the same freaking thing. It was awesome. I loved it. I loved this episode. The only thing that I could say I have a slight complaint on is Iris's time sickness story. Only because I don't really get it. I kind of get it. They kind of say that the forces infected her with this, the negative forces infected her with this, knowing that positive Dion would try and help her and would die because of it. So when we saw him disappear in like episode 14 or 15, that was positive Dion disappearing, and every Dion after that was negative. Or maybe even positive Dion threw Nora into the Speed Force to help him. That could also be the case too. But I'm just really excited to see where this goes. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed the episode, be sure to drop a like, leave a comment on what you thought of the episode, and I'll catch you guys next week with the next episode. Stay safe and have a great night.